Yes. Radhe Radhe. Thank you, Sunil Bhai, and thank you, Madan ji, for such an awesome session. Radhe Radhe. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita session. Radhe Radhe, Nitin ji, over to you.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you, Pallavi ji, and thank you, Madan Bhai, Sunil Bhai, for a wonderful session. So, very warm good morning, good evening to all of you. Hope you are doing good, and very warm welcome once again. So let's get started. So yesterday we were discussing 4.27. We've been discussing the paths, the different paths of yoga, and 4.27 we had a pretty extended conversation around Gyan Marg and Bhakti Marg. And one of the questions that was posed, I got that in a feedback tracker, is that somewhere in Bhagavad Gita, God has said that Gyanis are very dear to him, right? He likes Gyanis. So I thought, okay, let's tackle this question as well today, because we have not concluded the conversation. We spoke about Gyan Marg, what are the entry criteria, eligibility criteria around it. And this discussion will not fructify or will be complete unless we introduce the other side of it as well, and what is Lord Krishna's verdict on it. And that is what we are going to discuss today. So I'm going to make a quick jump ahead today, although sequentially we are on 4.47, but we'll make a couple of chapter jump just so that this is a complementary shloka, right? There are a lot of shlokas which are, you can actually tie them together, like 9.34, 18.55 we looked at yesterday. So today also I have picked up a shloka that will help clarify the concept. Okay, we're going to get into some deeper philosophy today, so please feel free to stop me. And let's discuss this concept. It's a very important and interesting concept. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started by invoking the blessings of God and Guru. Okay. All right, we'll get started with our opening prayers. Is audio is all right? Okay, great.
Yes, audio and visual. Everything is fine. Yeah.
Great. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. All right, Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening to all of you once again. So let's get started. So like I said, we're going to make a quick jump ahead and we'll resume our focus in 4.27 from, we'll pick up the sequence again. But this shloka is important to conclude the discussion, at least partly, on what we have been discussing, right? We spoke about Gyan Marg in detail, that there is a pretty high entry bar that is being set on the path of Gyan. So let's look at the different yogis and what Lord Krishna has to say about them. And I picked up 6.47, the last shloka of chapter 6 today, to drive the discussion today. Let's get started. Yoginamapi sarvesham madgatenantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yoma Same yukta tamo mataha. All right, we can take volunteers who want to.
Yes, Radhe Radhe Samji. Please.
Radhe Radhe. Yoginamapi sarvesham madgadena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yuktatamo mataha. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Venkatji, please go ahead.
Venkatji.
Radhe Radhe Venkatji. We can move on.
Sorry,
Yes.
Radhe Radhe, sorry, double muted, sorry. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana Shraddha dhavam bhajate yomam same yukta tamo matah.
Very nice, Venkatji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Sandhya ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Yoginamapi sarvesham madgatenantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo matah.
Very nice. Thank you, Sandhya.
Surender ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Hare Prabhu.
Radhe Radhe.
Yoginam api sarvesham madgate antaratma Shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktamamo mataha. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you,
Raj
Prabhu.
ji,
What about the buzzwords here? Shraddhavan, bhajate, yukta mata. These are very important words that are being used here. So we'll put it in context. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice.
Payal ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
LG.
Radhe Radhe. Yoginamapi sarvesham madgate atmaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo matah. Radhe Radhe.
Your beautiful bhajan is still reverberating in our ears. So very nice. All right.
Sunita ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Okay. Yoginamapi sarvesham madgatenantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yoma same yukta tamo mata. Radhe Radhe.
Okay, very nice, Sunita ji. Where are you joining us from?
I think I'm in Dallas. I joined every day, but once in a while I talk, but usually I'm here every day.
Okay, good to hear you. Very nice. I think you recited for the first time probably today.
No, I couple, like 3-4 weeks ago, I also did. So, but everybody's singing, so I just said, okay, today I just thought, okay, let's go ahead. Thank you, sir. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you very much. Love to hear from you more often. All right, let's move on.
Akshata ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Yoginamati sarvesham
Okay, Akshata ji, we heard it. There was a lot of disturbance in the background though. We want to fix that. Okay, let's move on.
Rahul ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Yoginamapi sarvesham madgatenantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mata.
Radhe Radhe. Okay, who do we
Lakshmi ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
You'll have
Lakshmi ji, yeah. We'll move on. Yeah. Shruti ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Pallavi, Radhe Radhe Nathan. Yoginamapi sarvesham madgatenantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo matah. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe. Wonderful.
Yeah, we can go back to Lakshmi ji. Lakshmi ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Sorry, there was no connection, so I was going to talk. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo matah. Radhe Radhe.
Sumesh ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
You
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe. Yoginaamapi sarvesham madgatenantaratmana Sadhavan bhajate yo mam same yuktatamo mataha. Radhe Radhe.
Very well. Down to our last 4 hands. Let's quickly do that. And we'll get started.
Riya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
योगिनामपि सर्वेषां मद्गतेनान्तरात्मना श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां समे युक्ततमो मतः.
Wonderful.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. All right, we are down to our last 3 hands.
Pragi ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. योगिनामपि सर्वेषां मद्गतेनान्तरात्मना श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां सामे युक्तमो मतः.
Nice, Pragi ji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Yoginamapi sarvesham mattatena Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yukta tamo mataha. Thank you.
Nice, Sri Ramya. You are tagged for singing again today. Okay, so we do remember you said that you're going to recite a few lines today. So look forward
Ashutosh, yes.
to it. Please go ahead.
Ashutosh ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
योगिनामपि सर्वेषां मद्गतेनान्तरात्मना श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां समे युक्ततमो मतः.
Very nice, Ashutosh ji. Great. So after the wonderful recitation, let's get started on this shloka. Yoginam is of all yogis. Api means however. Sarvesha means all types of. Matgatena, absorbed in me. That is God. Anta means inner. Atmana means with the mind. Shraddhavan means with great faith. Bhajate means engage in devotion. Yah means who. Mam to me. Sa he, me by me. Yukta tamaha, the highest yogi. Mata is considered. So Lord Krishna is giving his verdict on this question that we have been, we've not been discussing this question really. We've been talking about different paths and what is the entry criteria for, the Gyan Marg. And we are going to tackle the question around whom Lord Krishna considers the highest yogi. Okay, this question, people have their own interpretations around it and they talk about it. Even people who haven't read Gita, they say, this is it said. So this shloka should lay to rest once and for all. It's very clearly stated. So let's see what he says. It says, of all yogis, those whose minds are always absorbed in me and who engage in devotion to me with great faith, them I consider to be the highest of all. He has not said that those who activate their chakras or those who do the Kundalini Jagaran or those who contemplate upon me, that part, no, it's not contemplate, but those who go through the path of acquisition of knowledge. It's very clearly saying that. And like in his inimitable style, Lord Krishna is saying is considered. It's basically giving his opinion or his verdict on this matter. Okay. So let's get started to the content part of it. So who takes the pole position basically is what we are going to talk about. Who is the highest yogi amongst all the yogis? There are different paths, there are different yogic paths. So this is what we are going to tackle today. So like we do in our Kahoot, there are typically people who take pole position, they continue to take, and then here Lord Krishna is saying, who is the highest yogi? Is it one of these three, right? And he's giving his verdict. Is it a Karam yogi, Ashtang yogi, Gyan yogi, or Bhakti yogi? Simply saying Bhakti yogi. Now Bhakti is considered an easier path because there is no entry barrier to it. Everybody is eligible on this path. It's like floodgates are open for everybody. A sinner can start, person who haven't yet renounced or in the advanced stage of renunciation can start, cricketer can start, singer can start, bhakt can start, everybody can start. So just because everybody can start, and something that is easy, right? The recitation is not very difficult. Doing beads, like people do beads also, chanting, these all things are related to bhakti. Bhakti actually means not only doing the mechanical exercise, but also remembering. But however, it is open for everyone. And generally, it is, our mind has a bias towards difficult things. Something which is difficult, that means it is something superior, right? Even the brands, they cash in on that aspect of it. Something which is more expensive, which is something more, which is elusive, has to be more precious, or maybe the better one. Not necessarily. When I was doing my masters, I was looking at some of the case studies we were given. There's a Lexus brand. It's basically, I think, Toyota or Honda, one of these two companies brand only. Same assembly line, everything is same. We just change the chassis and create it as a luxury. So from a supply chain standpoint, from a manufacturing standpoint, it's essentially the same cost for what you would probably, it would incur them to create a Corolla or a Honda unit. But you created exclusivity around it. It is a luxury brand. And for that, people are willing to pay. It makes them feel good. People pay for that. It makes them feel good. When you buy something new, expensive, branded, it gives you a sense of satisfaction, right? So same thing happens. Something which is difficult, people think it's something special I'm doing. Not necessarily. All you have to finally do is Radhe Govind Govind Radhe. However, it takes a lot of intellectual convincing to get to that simple state. Right? Things which are, it is like they say, right? Even in English, there is a saying. It's very difficult to be easy and easy to be difficult. Right? So something which is easy, obviously, a lot of process has to go in for you to reach that stage. And same thing goes with bhakti as well. Now, Lord Krishna is saying that. So you can rest in basically in your intellectually. If you have any question, you can refer to the shloka always. He's saying that very clearly. He's not saying Jnani is my favorite or Gyan Marg, although difficult, but if somebody does that, that person will really become priya to me. Or Gyan Marg, although difficult, is the recommended path. Or Gyan Marg, although difficult, will help you realize me in entirety. No. And we will also look at some additional references from Bhagavatam as well, just to drive home the point around this. Okay. So this is how the shloka starts. Now let's move on. Continuing on this, so what Lord Krishna is saying, let's look at some of the key points in this shloka. First thing that he's saying is, so first it decisively puts this debate, which form of yoga is the highest. That is the first takeaway in this shloka. Okay. The second one is that Bhakti Yogi to be the highest, superior to even the best Ashtang Yogi or Hatha Yogi. Very clearly he's saying that. Okay, he's saying that he's the best, is basically is considered to be the highest yogi. Now, because bhakti or devotion is the highest power of God, it is such a power that binds God and makes him a slave of his devotee. Now, just think of the prospect of a president of this world, who's the most powerful person on this planet. Probably the president of US, maybe not be now anymore, but at least until few years back, he was considered the most powerful. But just forget about that also. Even the most superior post in your country, whether it is a prime minister or a president, if they become your slave, they say, okay, let us know what we need to do. Just think of it, what kind of a privilege that is. And here our scriptures are telling us through this path, the Brahmand Nayak, the president of this entire creation, becomes your slave. Just think about that possibility. And how can it happen? Through devotion, through selfless devotion. Again, reminds me of that line in the bhajan, hai ghat tumhara kan kan mein sab jag ko naach nachate ho, lekin yashoda ke haathon se tum ukhal mein bandh jate ho. So that is the level of love, selfless love, what you can make God do. Right? There's another beautiful bhajan which says Albelo Hamaro Yar, right? It says Dahi Nahi Jat Samadhin, Nahi Jat Samadhin Jogin Jai. Person who does not care to enter the samadhi or the trance of big yogis who have been performing austerities, penances, and the tapasya for thousands of years, and the Brahman Nayak, he does not care to enter their trance or samadhi. And then further on, the bhajan goes on to say, Nachat ta the. And then on Braj basically on gopis, just to have some charge, he will dance to their tunes. Somebody whom you cannot capture in your samadhi, despite your best efforts, is willing to dance to your tunes. How is it possible? Through Ashtanga Yoga? Just because you activated a chakra, Manipuri chakra or that chakra? No. Devotion, selfless devotion. Okay, that is the key. Now let's look at some more references for it. What does Bhagavatam talk about it? So Lord Krishna says in Bhagavatam, so God says that I am supremely independent. Although I am supremely independent, but then under the sway of love, what does he say? Let's look at it verbatim. I become enslaved by my devotees. They conquer my heart. And then he says, what to speak of my devotees? Even the devotees of my devotees are very dear to me. And it is said, when a devotee walks, Lord accompanies him. Why? Why does he accompany him? Just so that he gets purified by their foot dust. That is the sentiment God has towards the devotees. And devotees as well. So that is the power of devotion. Okay, it's not an ordinary thing. If you are in the path of devotion, just because it seems easy to begin with, God has made it in no entry criteria on this one, doesn't mean it's an easy path. On the contrary, it starts becoming increasingly difficult because the thing that we are most proud of, our ego, that aham, the ahankar, that aspect has to diminish over time. And it has nothing to do with your own self-seeking. You don't even desire moksha. Moksha is considered the highest desire, beyond the bhakti desire, but the lowest spiritual desire. It's the entry point of desire, right? In the path of devotion, they say, because it is also self-seeking. Moksha is also self-seeking. How revolutionary this concept is. People think moksha is the ultimate goal of life. Maharaj says moksha is also self-seeking. You are simply aiming for dukkha nivritti, that okay God, I want to end my miseries. Now I'll tell you, that's not a truth actually. Why it is not a truth is what we are going to discuss. It's a very important concept to be understood because the very definition of truth is challenged there. Patanjali Yoga Sutra talks about one of the virtues, even in chapter 16, verse 3, Lord Krishna talks about Devik Gun, and truth is considered, truth is God. But it is not complete truth. Okay? I'm not saying it's a lie, but it's not a complete truth. So why? We will see that. Now, Bhakti Yogi possesses the power of divine love and is thus most dear to God and considered by him to be the highest of all. Now, divine love is God's topmost prize that he can offer to a Jivatma. And something which is the topmost prize, which is the most precious thing. Where do we keep that thing? Do we make it easily accessible? No, we'll go to a bank, we'll take a locker, within that we'll put that, and maybe locker within a locker within a locker, right? Even in our house, so that it is the most precious, most guarded thing. The same thing, God keeps bhakti and divine love hidden from everyone until you have rejected everything and say, God, that is the only thing I need. And obviously we need to be selfless for that, right? That is the whole process of selflessness, surrender, and the concept that we are talking about. But let's understand that topmost prize of God is bhakti. And that is why God considers a bhakt to be the highest yogi. Because in order for you to reach your true potential, that is the only way. We'll see more. This is the topic I've chosen today, just to spark off some thought process and a good discussion around this topic. And we'll tackle it very, very systematically. so that any doubts that we have related to Gyan and other things are laid to at least clarified. Now, if this question, in this particular thing, this word is used, bhajate. Yes, Samji, you had a question? Vidyamaya, Avidyamaya, you'll have to wait for that a little bit more. Please go ahead. Unmute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yes, yes, I can. Please go ahead, Samji.
Yes, Samji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Could you please tell again why God considers bhakti as highest?
God considers bhakti as highest because okay, this question will probably get answered. Okay, now I'll tell you why. This question will get answered very easily. It will get answered in next couple of slides. So just hold on.
Okay.
Now, bhajate word is used in this one. So you will yourself be able to answer this question after we go through these couple of slides. Okay, so bhajate word is used in this one, right? So bhajate, the root for that is coming from the word bhaj, which means to serve. Okay, and there's another part which is called worship. Worship is to adore. Right? Now, what Lord Krishna is saying is talking about those who not merely adore him, but also serve him with loving devotion. Okay, there are two aspects to it, not only worship, but serve him as well. And they are in the natural position of the soul as a servant of God, while the other kind of yogis are still incomplete in their realization. When you start serving, that is why they say seva is very important on this path. Why? Because you are building sanskars to serve. And our constitutional position is that of a hand with the stomach. We are Nityadas. We are part of the whole. And the constitutional position or the duty of the part is to serve the whole. Right? We are Ansh of God. And the duty or the kartavya of Ansh is to serve the Anshi. When you serve the Anshi, Ansh will automatically get what it needs in return. So the bhaj, bhakti word comes from bhaj, which means to serve. Does any other path talk about serve aspect of it? What is the goal in moksha? Is it to serve God? Merge. Dukh nivritti. Simultaneous bliss. Perfect knowledge. That's all. Does serve come anywhere at all? No, it doesn't. So now they are actually positioned in the natural position or the constitutional position, so to say. Now they have connected themselves with God, but they have not yet situated themselves in understanding that they are his eternal servants. That part is still missed out in that. Yeah, Shriramya, you had a question? I can take that.
Please go ahead, Radhe Radhe.
Yes, thanks. Radhe Radhe. So my question is to purify the mind. If somebody does a meditation or they come to the path of other yoga, like a Gyan yoga or something, and if they want to progress towards bhakti, they are still not in the path of bhakti, but does Krishna notice their effort? Is it still considered as bhakti? Like we might be being disturbed with a lot of distractions. So be the Kundalini Jagarna or whatever, they could be done to improve our mindfulness, right? So could that be a step towards bhakti?
Possibly could be a stepping stone for somebody, especially if they are gaining more awareness and things like that, and if they are fortunate to come across a guru who can give them perfect tattva dhyan. My first and basic and fundamental question to all the Kriya Yogis is, what is your end goal? And nobody has been able to answer that question for me satisfactorily till far, right? Now, by doing Kundalini, what is your intention? What is your intention? You want to experience something. Now, when you experience something, you are still in the world of Maya. And Maya is tainted by 3 gunas. When you talk about purification of mind, yes, it will help you build concentration. You will have, you are trying to harness your powers latent within your body. Great. You are harnessing those powers. However, you are still dabbling in the material world. The only way to cleanse our mind or antakaran, because it is dirty, is to take it beyond the three gunas. Take it to something which is all pure. And all pure is only God and God realized saint. Okay, God has given us a concession by taking avatars. He says, all right, you need variety. So my naam, Guna, Leela, Dham, and Parikar. I give you all of this. But if we are focusing on anything other than that, not God, we cannot cleanse our antakaran. So you will be in a great elevated stage for as long as you are doing your samadhi or dhyan, or you are, in a particular chakra. When you're out of it, that shuddhikaran, that cleaning of your mind has still not taken place. It is still there. Even in Gyan Yoga, when you do that, we talked about Vidya Maya yesterday, right? The higher virtues like goodness, all that stuff, the mode of goodness you cannot overcome. Mode of sattva completely you cannot overcome unless you are surrendered to God. Because you had pride that I am doing good or I know this will not go away. So for that, you have to become Sharanagat to God only. So to answer your question, Shiramya, it is very contextual. If you are focusing on all pure God or all the areas of God, it will purify your mind. If you are doing anything other than that, it may help you develop concentration, powers, or mystic abilities, or temporary relief, symptomatic relief from what you are seeking from, but it will not fix the problem from its root. Simple answer. Okay. Sandhya, you also had a question?
Please go ahead, Sandhya ji. Radhe Radhe.
Just to add, it's just like I was talking right by yesterday. It's just like when you have some problem, you pop in a pill for a symptomatic relief. Does it address the root? So would you rather build your immunity or go to the root, or just have a symptomatic relief around it? So all these practices give you symptomatic relief, symptomatic kick. It's not really working on the root, because we will talk about that truth now. That will help you appreciate this concept a little more as I go to the next slide. But let's take the question and then I'll move on.
Radhe Radhe. So some people say that Hatha Yoga or in Gyan Yoga, they are attempting to serve the Advait, like the Shunya form of the God. Is that correct, or are they different? The Advait form.
Okay, Advait form of God is basically, what do they say? What do they focus on?
Shunya. I don't know.
So nobody can explain you. Okay, they focus on light. Okay, and it is said that light is nothing but the effulgence of God. Okay, from his toenail, that light that emanates, or through his body, the effulgence that emanates, they focus on that. Some light they will do that, like Brahma Jyoti they talk about, right? Brahmaleen, Brahma Jyoti. So it's just like that example of train that Maharajji gives, Swamiji gives. When the train is coming from a distance, it appears as light, because they have not really understood. As the train starts coming closer, you start seeing it in full glory, but they don't reach there. They are in the Birja river, okay, at the cusp of material world and spiritual world, and that is where they merge into that effulgence. So they are not serving; they are just focusing or doing the samadhi. What can you serve Shunya? Are you going to put more zeros into that? Are you going
They
to
say, yeah. Then sorry, like in this shloka that we have 6.47, this me is written. They tend to infer this me as Nirgun Nirakar form of the God. I mean that, yeah.
But there is how can you serve Nirgun Nirakar? The person who does not even have energy, you can't grace, what can you serve? And then Nirgun Nirakar can't even grace. So grace is also cut. It's like, okay, God, your hand is like Thakur of Sholay, right? It can't move. And God says, all right, I'll become that only. If you want to cut out grace aspect from it, fine. So that is where the interpretations start coming in. Nirguna Nirakar and all that part, right? So Maharajji has actually explained this very logically. It's like somebody, even in Shankaracharya, which Lahiri he has written, Lalit Lahiri or Durga, I'm forgetting that he wrote that because actually Durga Mata came to refute the philosophy that he was propagating. So he was walking by a street one day, and this lady was sitting on the street with his dead man's husband's body there lying on the street in her lap. So it was a very narrow street. So he said, "Give me way." He said, you know, tell the body it should be able to give you way. He said, don't you understand? It does not have life. He said, in your philosophy, you are saying God is Nirgun, Nirvishe, Nirakar, and then he doesn't have power. If without power, he can manifest this entire thing. Even this body should be able to manifest, all by itself. It should move aside. And then he realized that this lady has found a big fallacy in my, the theory that I've been propagating, right? Anyway, he was a saint himself. In private, he was a big Rasik saint. So the point here being, Nirgun and Nirakar, Nirvishesh aspect of God is a valid path. You can do that. Brahmalin, Brahmajyoti aspect of it, but the grace aspect is cut and the seva aspect is cut there as well. These two aspects don't exist there. Well, who are you going to serve? What are you going to serve? And there is no grace in that concept. Okay. Yes, Srirama, you had a question?
Please go ahead, Ramya ji.
I had a follow-up question actually. In one of the second chapters, I don't remember exactly shloka, but Krishna says like these are like rungs of ladder, right? You go through Karma Yoga and then Gyan Yoga, Karma Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Gyan Yoga, and then Bhakti Yoga. Like each one will help the other one to go to the next step. This we discussed right in second chapter.
Yes, Karma Yoga is given basically to make your work a worship. Typically, our worship is limited to the temple, right? Or that 1 hour that you spend. Karma Yoga is a stepping stone to that. That doesn't mean you have to go through all the limbs. Knowledge is important. I'll tell you how, why. But doesn't mean you have to become an Ashtang Yogi and Hatha Yogi, and then only you can progress. No, you can actually be. In fact, Bhakti said it can stand on its own. You don't need anything else if you do pure Bhakti. Okay. Knowledge is important to an extent, but beyond a point, it's not needed. Okay, and that's something we can probably discuss tomorrow. How much of knowledge is truly needed for us to progress? It's a very important question, right? When you say, if we have to progress spiritually, how much of knowledge is good for me, good enough for me to start progressing on this path? We'll talk about this topic as well. To your point, Sri Ramya, Karam Yoga is something that God has made it easy. He said, okay, you can't worship throughout the day, and at the same time, people say that if I start worshiping, how will I take care of my family? How will I work? Take care of my job. How will I take care of my responsibilities? So God said, I'll give you a very simple formula. The world demands your attention to work. They don't demand your mind. So you start practicing Karam Yoga and make your work a worship. And you start doing the work not for your sense enjoyment, not so that you can enjoy, and you start doing it to the best of your ability for the sake of God's pleasure and start offering the fruit to Him. It becomes worship at that point. So it is given to us so that we can make our work worship and gradually start building the consciousness of remembering God always. So yes, Karam Yoga is a stepping stone in that sense. But let's say in one of the lifetimes, you have developed enough dispassion, detachment, and this practice of Karam Yoga, then possibly you don't even need to do Karam Yoga at that point. You could be a Karam Sannyasi right from the word go. That is also a possibility. But doesn't mean you have to go through the path of Ashtanga Yoga, Hatha Yoga, and these are like ladders, one step after another. You do nothing of that sort. Let's move on. Knowledge. Then the question is, where do we put knowledge in this whole scheme of things? We are saying devotion and this thing. In fact, if you look at it, this will help us conclude our conversation actually. Now, before that, Lord is also saying that in Bhagavatam, that amongst many millions of perfected and liberated saints, the peaceful person who is devoted to the Supreme Lord, Narayan, is very rare. Okay, so we think, right, not many people come on this path, not many people are inspired. Why is it so difficult for people to understand when it is making sense to us? God is telling very clearly in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam also that very few people, actually come into this path, and even amongst those, very few are able to perfect it. And even those who perfect it, people who actually start to get to see, know the truth in its entirety, are very few. It just keeps on decreasing. So another way of understanding this concept basically is Bhakti Yoga provides the closest and most complete realization of God as well. So you're not just looking at train as a light alone. Now you know the train in its full glory. So your realization of God, it's not self-realization alone. Now you're realizing God in its most in its full glory. The complete and closest. This is the word in Bhagavatam. Complete and the closest realization that can happen through Bhakti Yoga. And even in 1855, God is saying that Bhakti Yogi alone understands the true personality of God. Now, no, our scriptures say nobody can understand God. Right? And then our scriptures also say that only if you understand God can you realize God. Basically, at time of God realization, you understand God. Then how can you it happen? Nobody can understand it. Our scriptures say that. And for us to realize God, we have to understand that as well, right? Now, this is resolved by saying nobody can understand God. Only those can understand God whom God graces himself. He bestows his grace so that they can know him. So it's only through God's grace can we complete the process of God realization. So you cannot replace God's grace. It's not like there is an alternate to God's grace in any other path. God's grace is a prereq or a must have on this path, which is priceless. You can't put a price on God's grace that I will do so many anushthan, so many yagyas, so much of tapasya, so many of chantings. Now, God, I demand your grace. No, we cannot put a price tag to that because God's grace is priceless. Only He knows when it is the time is right for His grace to flow down to complete or perfect our devotion. So we can do sadhana bhakti, the preparatory bhakti, and then God grace will start mixing it up, mixing with it, and then uplifting us to the next level where we can get into bhav bhakti, mahabhav bhakti, and perfect our devotion. And that is only available on the path of bhakti. So the point is, regardless of which path you take, finally you have to get to bhakti. There is no way out. You can have good experiences through other practices that you are doing, but you are nowhere getting closer to God realization. Okay? That is a very clear concept. If somebody thinks they're just fooling themselves. Okay? They need to get in contact with the guru if they are serious about their spirituality and channelize their efforts in a direction which is taking them closer to the goal, as opposed to just exploring another dimension of Maya. Maya also is like, we cannot underestimate Maya. We've got to be careful of Maya. So these are all mic traps basically, and there are no limits to that. These siddhis, mystic abilities, all this stuff is nothing to do with God realization. You're still dabbling in material world. Yes, Pallavi, you got another question?
Yeah, I'll read out questions from people, especially in chat.
Sure.
It is from Surenderji. He wants to know, how does one realize that the God is being served?
How does one realize that God is being served?
Yes.
Yeah, those are the sanskars you build basically, right from the word go. Right now, in seva, when you come in bhakti path, there are 3 S they talk about, right? Satsang, seva, and sadhana. All 3 go hand in hand. So ground up, fundamentally, you are building those sanskars. You do your sadhana, you do your devotional practice, chanting of God's name, kirtan, bhajan. You do satsang, you associate with people who don't take your mind to worldly things or distract you. And then you do seva. So these 3 S, when you add, you're automatically building those sanskars. So the selflessness has already started coming in. Even if you spend 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes in a day in a seva, you're already started building those sanskars. Finally, we have to do seva of God only. Right? The bhavs that we spoke about, in those bhavs, it's not about now I have realized God, I'm going to relax now. I'm tired of all the efforts I've put in realizing you. Now you serve me. Your devotion takes another level at that point. You continue to serve God. You can choose to serve him by coming down as a saint. You can choose to serve him as a villain in his leelas. You can choose to serve him as his sakhas. You can choose to serve him as gopis. right? You can choose to serve him in so many ways. So that service attitude continues forever, even after God realization, with the difference that you are not under the laws of Maya anymore. You don't have to deal with Jara, Vyadhi, Mrityu, and disease, Tridosh, Tritap, Adi Devik, Adi Bhautik, all those problems, mental afflictions, you are a done deal. And at that point, you're already in perpetual bliss. Then you can choose to come with God in his leelas, or you could choose to stay in Golok and just enjoy for the rest of eternity. That's your choice. So that is what it means. And seva is very important there in that, because if you our constitutional position is Nitya Das, finally we have to serve only. And if you're not building those sanskars, we'll have to build those sanskars in some other lifetime. So something that anyway has to happen, why not start doing it now only? Same thing for other paths also. If you have to finally surrender to God only, why not start doing it right from the the first step only? Why to first go a particular stage and then realize and then say, okay, I had to surrender to God, or by the way, I had to do bhakti. It's more smarter strategy, right? If you understand it, to start building those sanskars right from the word go. Okay, any other question?
Yeah, there's one follow-up, that seva to the downtrodden. Is that right?
Jan seva and Bhagavad seva are two different things. However, you could be doing Bhagavad God seva of God even while doing Jan seva, provided your consciousness is directed towards that, right? So Jan seva of downtrodden, if you are doing it because, hey, how pitiable state they are in, and I'm helping them, that becomes Jan seva. You are accruing sattvic merit from that deed. If you are doing Jan Seva of downtrodden, thinking, thank you, God, for giving me this opportunity and making me an instrument to help your, your part and parcels only. And having an expression of gratitude towards God for having picked you as an instrument and not taking the credit for yourself, then it becomes God Seva. Act is same, consciousness is different. But if you are simply doing Jan Seva, thinking, God, why does God doesn't need anything? I mean, we should simply help people, and why to put this and that, like in a lot of Bollywood movies like this show. So you are just putting a sattvic gun there. It will take you to Swarg at best, but you are not out of material world. So
yeah, beautifully answered.
what consciousness is important. Act could be the same.
One quick question is there, Nitinji? Is Saundarya Lahari by Adi Shankaracharya? Asha ji has asked this.
Saundarya Lahari, I guess, yes, Saundarya Lahari. Because when this lady said do that, and Shankaracharya ji realized that she's not an ordinary person who has found such a big fallacy in her theory. All of a sudden the scene had changed. There was a Durga in her Sakshat avatar in front of him. Basically, she came to tell, there's a fallacy when you talk about God as Nirgun, Nirvishesh, Nirakar. In one of the lectures, Swamiji has spoken about it beautifully. If you have subscribed to JK Yoga Radio, maybe it will come in one of his lectures, so you can always listen to that. But this experience Shankaracharya ji had, and the words that came out of his mouth when he saw Mother Durga in her full glory, and that is when he wrote that Saundarya Lahari, or one of these, that complete composition that he had. Thank you for bringing it. I think he taught 2 or 3. One of them was this one.
Thank you, Nitinji. I think there's no more question at this moment. Yeah.
Now let's put knowledge in perspective. So here is you see a bow and arrow here. Now let's look at what are the enablers that will help us hit the bullseye, and what is the bullseye also we are going to talk about. So here you see a bow. Now this bow is that of knowledge. This arrow is that of devotion. And what do you need to do? When you have an arrow, you need to put something on the tip of the arrow as well, right? That is your bhav. And with this, you take an aim and shoot the truth. Go hunt for the absolute truth. Okay. And what is the absolute truth here? Anybody who wants to take that? Let's talk about. See, knowledge is important. One cannot underestimate the power of knowledge on this path. Tattva Gyan, Siddhant Bhare, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had said, na karo alas. Basically, don't be lazy in acquiring knowledge. Knowledge is needed. Knowledge reinforces faith. devotion, right? Faith leads to devotion. Devotion leads to more knowledge, because now the truths will start getting revealed within you. As the truth will start getting revealed within you, it will give you more devotion. Now you get more devotion. Because of devotion, some more knowledge, more devotion. So they are mutually reinforcing until knowledge reaches a peak, and it's only devotion after that. After that, you don't need any more devotion, knowledge. So knowledge has a peak. It has a Purnima. Devotion does not have a Purnima, and Bhav does not have a Purnima. You can keep decorating it to as many levels as you want. We spoke about the Bhavs. Now, what is the truth here? When we speak about truth, let's talk about other parts. What is the ultimate truth that they're trying to seek here? Let's talk about what's a truth for Jnani. Moksha, what does that mean? Or for a Kriya Yogi, or for a Hatha Yogi? Anybody who wants to take that question? What is the absolute truth there? It's an important concept. So let's hear if any participants know about any of these paths and want to add some color commentary on it. Yes, Ajitji, please go ahead.
Yes, Radhe Radhe, Ajitji.
Radhe Radhe. Just like the ghee, grit is the truth for the milk. Similarly, there is a universal truth, moksha, for a human being.
Okay.
Radhe Radhe.
So Ajitji, that is where I was saying that moksha is where Bhagavad Gita ends, and Bhagavatam talks about, let's leave these four things aside: dharam, karam, arth, and moksha. So moksha, there are possibilities even beyond moksha. Moksha is not the absolute truth, is the key concept that we are discussing. And the concept, let's hear from others, and I'll revisit that just so that we are absolutely clear on it. Moksha is, yes, it's a spiritual milestone. However, it is still not the absolute. You have still not realized God in its full glory. Okay, if you go to Bhagavatam, you'll understand, and this is what I've been trying to drive home the point. Moksha, you have realized God only in a certain aspect of God. You have still not realized God completely. It is a revolutionary concept, right? For a lot of people, when they hear, no, there is something beyond moksha also. How is it possible? That is what I'm trying to explain, and we will go a little more deeper because we brought up that point. Let's hear from others as well, and then I'll get into that absolute truth part of it.
Yes, Venkatji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Nitinji. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. The truth is actually Sat, which is Satchit. It's part of Satchit, Satchidananda, right? Satchit Anand. So the eternal bliss is the truth.
Eternal bliss is the truth. Yeah, yes, that's right. Satchidanand, very true. And if I say, you said Satchidanand, now
Yes.
within Satchidanand also Sat rolls into Chit. So you can God Chidanand also. And Chit and Sat both roll into Anand. So you can simply say Anand, that is also there. So the bliss is the supreme truth as we understand. However, it can go a little more deeper into that as well. Okay. So let's hold off. I'll get back to that. Satchidanand and the moksha. These are two questions. Let's hear from somebody else as well.
Nitinji, I have one quick question. One question as well, actually, about this Gnani concept. So in 7.17, Artho Jignasu Gnani, right? That sloka. Further to that, there is another one, 7.17, I think. Tesham. I forgot that one, but there is a couple of places where Bhagavan mentioned that he loves Gnani the best, because he did not say that we should not follow these. There are many places where he mentioned as.
We have to look at it with complete. He says, who worship with knowledge. Okay. So we'll get into that. He's saying that in that particular shloka, I think he's saying Tesham Jnani Nitya Yukta, right? He's saying one who worship with knowledge. Now, worshipping can also happen in multiple ways, right? People who worship without having knowledge, or people who just have knowledge, no worship, or people who worship with knowledge. So he's saying that those are the top one for me. So maybe we are picking up a selective part of it. We can get into detail. But amongst the yogis, amongst all the paths, the verdict is very clear. He is considered Bhakti Yogis to be the highest one. And he has reiterated it in 1855 as well. In fact, he's reiterated in another shloka, I think 16th verse or that, where he says, when Arjuna asks him amongst form and formless, which one is the superior one? He's addressed that question there as well, where he says, Klesha Hiktarastesham Avyakta Sapta Chetasam. He's saying it's a path full of tribulations, and then the bhakti, the form, the one who worships form is considered higher. So Lord Krishna has continued to answer this question in different chapters. I can pick up all the shlokas in one of the sessions to reiterate this point. But what you're talking about, he's saying the Jnani one who does worships with Gyan is dear to him. That's what he said in that particular shloka. If there's another one, you can refer to me. Maybe we can have a good discussion on that, because Swamiji has explained it very, very clearly in multiple commentaries.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nitin.
Rahulji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. In Bhakti Shatak, Maharaj Ji has clearly mentioned that people who are following the path of Gyan, they can just go up to moksha, and that is the Nimna Kaksha of the Brahmanand. And people who are following the path of Karma, Swarg is the ultimate destination. But people who are focusing on Bhakti, then once that is attained, then Bhakti provides that Amrita, and then it also becomes Amar. And you can get up to that absolute truth. We are talking about the Samartharati Wala Mahabhav. Actually, Samartharati Wala Madhurya Bhav. That is what.
You're getting into deeper philosophy, very true. Just to put it very simply, the peak of bhakti is Swarglok, celestial abodes. Okay, within celestial abodes also, the peak of celestial abode is Brahmalok, not even Indralok. Okay, but it is still material. Now, beyond that comes moksha. Moksha is the lowest class, where you are just scratch the surface of God. Then comes the Vaikuntha Ras, Shanta Bhav Ras. People who can have association of God as his king. Then comes the Dasya Bhav, where you can press God's feet like Hanumanji and all right. Then comes Sakha Bhav, then comes Vatsalya Bhav, where you can treat God, and then comes the Madhurya Bhav, and within Madhurya Bhav there are so many categories. So this is the categorization. And moksha is the boot camp. It's like if you're planning to explore sun, you just touch the surface. Or if you're planning to climb a Mount Everest, you were at the boot camp only, and you thought that my job is done. But in Gyan Marg, moksha is the peak. I get that part, right? So yeah, and in yogic path, Ashtanga Yoga path, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, where you meet the Paramatma, is the peak. Okay? But these paths are like considered, when you go to Bhagavatam, it's like the devotee, they reject that. They understand that the Brahmanand or the bliss of moksha. Another example that is given is the bliss of moksha. When you are in moksha, you are a done deal, which is considered the topmost prize by a lot of people, right? That bliss is equated to, this is a comparison that is given. He said you have infinite bliss, an ocean of moksha, and on the other side you have one drop of Premanand of God, right? That one drop, and you just dip the needle in that one drop. Not even one drop, just dip the needle and take the needle out. So you will have just a trace of that liquid of Premanand. That trace of Premanand, if a Brahmanandi, who has the ocean of moksha with him, if he tastes that, they will reject that. That is the comparison that is given. It is said the moksha is insipid in front of Premanand. So Brahmanand is insipid in front of Premanand, because we are talking about the price of bhakti, not the price of jnana here. These are very deep concepts. You'll not get that information just like that. And these are churned for us from the scripture by our God, Guru, basically. Right? And not an ordinary saint can tell you all these deeper concepts in our Bhagavatam and how it goes. Yes, Krishnaji, you had a question as well?
Radhe Radhe. Krishnaji.
Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe. What I understand is the absolute truth is the eternal unflinching devotional service at the lotus feet of the Supreme Godhead, Sri Radhe Krishna. Jiver Swarup Hoy Krishna Nityadas. Eternally we want to be remain in the devotional service always. When we take birth after birth, we want to be with Krishna only, always Radhe Krishna. That is the absolute truth. no amount of moksha in Brahma Jyoti, they will remain inactive and they come down like anything. They fall down. That's what Krishna says. In the last, he says, this is the topmost. 6.41, Guruji has explained very, very wonderfully that. And it's wonderful that the devotional top, the bhakti is the topmost. I only know that. Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Beautiful point, Krishnanji. True. Now, again, let me tell you the hierarchy. It is said where, of course, I mean, we don't have to look at it that we are looking down upon religions and stuff like that, but purely from a spiritual theory standpoint, it is said where Quran ends, Bible begins. Where Bible ends, Bhagavad Gita begins. Where Bhagavad Gita ends, Bhagavatam begins. Where Bhagavatam ends, Chaitanya Charitamrita begins. Okay, that is the postdoc that Sandhya is doing, by the way. Chaitanya Charitamrita in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, Jeever Swarup Hoy Krishna Nityadas. So the absolute truth is, whichever practice you have done, if it has not taken you to a realization that you are the eternal servant of God, that is a partially realized truth. And moksha is very far away from that truth. It doesn't take you to that realization at all. So that is the absolute truth, basically, for a Jivatma to realize its constitutional position as an eternal servant of God, as its ansh, and serve God. And that is where a soul can realize its true and the topmost potential. Other than that, you cannot realize your top potential as a soul as well. So topmost prize of God. Yes, Ajitji, you wanted to add something more?
Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Actually, I feel that moksha is the gateway of whatever you have narrated further, and that very few people must have realized. That is why the other one is not no more information is available to us. As a human being, you see these sound waves, we can listen up to 2K, 20K, 3K to 20K. Beyond that also vibrations are there, but we are unable to hear it. So similarly, moksha, our limit is up to moksha. And to my opinion, what I want to add, my comment is that after moksha, everything will be automatically. We need not do any efforts. We have to target only up to moksha because our reach is up to that. Then beyond that, whatever is happening, that is automatically. This is my comment actually. Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, so yeah, it's partly because we don't get exposure to this knowledge, right? I would say that. And partly because of our own interpretation around this concept, I would say. But it's not a linear process where you first have to go through moksha and then things will be in an autopilot mode. No, that doesn't work that way. So basically, it is like the practice that you follow. In the same form, you will end up realizing God. Krishna said very clearly in whatever.
No, actually, as a scientifically, we see this satellite is being launched. So once the rocket goes beyond the orbital forces, then it reaches to the geostationary. That is a very, very high altitude, 36,000 kilometers. So I am just correlating with that our effort should reach to the orbital, and then beyond that, it will go automatically.
So that's a great analogy you brought in. Beautiful analogy. So I would just question that thing. Is it a principle or is it an opinion? See, everything that we say or believe in, it has to fall into one of these two categories. Is it a principle, siddhant, or is it an opinion? Because we feel so, or I think so because. I think that should answer the question, because more often than not, we form our own understanding around certain things because of something that appeals to us. And sometimes it is based out of Siddhant. And Siddhant is something which is spiritually, scripturally validated, said by multiple saints. That same thing has been corroborated or vetted by multiple saints, and a God-realized saint has said the same. If all three are in line, then it becomes a principle. Other than that, it usually falls into the category of opinion. And in that sense, it says that it's not a sequential process that you have to. Moksha is a byproduct of Premanand, by the way. Right? So in the path of devotion, they say you reject moksha because you understand the higher truth. And that higher truth is accessible. If you go to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy, if you go to a lot of saints, bhakti saints who have come, they have actually been talking about it. It's just that we haven't explored it. And there is a big theory and literature around it, which talks about, let's leave aside dharam, karam, arth, and moksha aspect of it. So, yeah, it's not a linear process, I would say. And also the fact that our sanskars dictated to a large extent as well, right? If I have been digging a well in the path of Gyan or in Kriya Yoga, I will have a natural affinity towards that path because multiple lifetime practices I have put in that. So we continue digging the same well. And in one of our lifetimes, if it is, we come across, we get a spark or a seed of bhakti, we may come across a saint, things can change. But Krishna in Bhagavad Gita has said very clearly that in whatever form you worship me, I'm going to solidify your faith in that and I'll meet you like that only. So even in Gyan Marg, he will meet you as a light. And once he meets you as a light, then he will not say, hey, by the way, you just limited yourself to a light and here is my personal form. Why would you do that? You never wanted to meet him like that. Right? And all of a sudden, you will not wake up as a Brahma Gyani that, hey, why did I seek light and now I think I should be seeking something else? No, you are already in the perpetual simultaneous bliss. Done deal at that point. So God is not going to play tricks with us. He said, I'll meet you the way you want. If you want to visualize me as an old man, I'll meet you as an old man. You want me to visualize as a kid, I'll meet you as a kid. You want me to visualize as a young man that he already is, in Golok, he'll meet you like that. And if you want to visualize him as light, which cannot grace, he'll meet you as a light, as a Brahmanand. Desire we only have to make and path will follow accordingly. Yes, Swati. Okay, we can make some announcements, Pallaviji, before we get too late. Dallas retreat, Janmashtami event coming up. You can, I'll not steal your thunder. You can make the announcements and then we'll take a few more questions around this.
Yes. Thank you, Nitinji. Awesome session. Awesome discussion going on. Thank you so much. So everyone, I have posted the feedback tracker. Please put in your questions, feedback, comments that you have. If your questions are not, we are like time constraint, we are not able to handle here. Nitinji will definitely take a look at those questions in the feedback tracker. The announcements for this for today are the first one is Janmashtami. We are going to have great grand celebration of Janmashtami from August 6th through 21st in person as well as online. So virtually, whoever is unable to attend in person, they can definitely attend online. So I have posted the link in the chat. Please go and click on the link and look out for more details. The second announcement is about Swami Mukundanandji's week-long program on Science of Happiness. These are the lecture series in Radha Krishna Temple, Allen, from August 20 to 26 August. So this is this is in-person event only, especially for Dallas. It will be in Radha Krishna Temple. So please take a look at this event as well. The one most important event I wanted to mention is about the Dallas retreat, which is upcoming retreat with Swamiji. It's from September 3rd through September 5th in Dallas. And I have posted that link in the chat. If you have any more questions, do please let us know. Nitinji, I hope I covered everything. Please let me know if I missed anything.
I think we've pretty much covered everything. Dallas retreat, please try to make it. And Janmashtami, do help us spread the word around as well. Okay, so if you are in the Seva, 4-5 minutes like Jive, Savuru, Hoy, Nitya Krishna Das is a good opportunity to start building Seva Sanskars. Help us spread the word around in whatever little way you can. That will be a good Seva to do because we have so many promotional videos coming up. I want to create a buzz around this event. So in whatever way you can help, that will be great.
Yeah, thank you, Nitinji. Sandhya ji, you have shared some YouTube. Is that a video? Do I need to share, or is that from previous celebrations?
No. So those are the invitations for the upcoming Janmashtami celebration. So I just shared them so that people can have a look at that and feel more excited to come and participate.
And I can see there is a Facebook watch. So there is some Facebook invitation as well. Yes.
These are the videos which volunteers have made with efforts to create a buzz around the event. Yeah.
Should we share this, Nitinji? Do we have time for that?
Let's take the questions and then we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, sure. All right. Thanks.
If you are interested in doing seva for the portal, maybe helping with the discussion threads or summarizing stuff on the portal because not much activity is happening, please let me know in the feedback tracker. That could be one of the seva you can do on a weekly basis. So do right. I mean, there's a lot of ways we can actually do that. So and we have a lot of good discussion that anyway happens. So Shriramya ji, are you around? Yeah. So after these two hands, we are going to take you and have you do those singing. Okay, I've not forgotten it, and we'll wrap it up, with a bit of a chanting as well. Yes, couple of hands I see.
Yes, Swati ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. So the absolute truth or the target of our life is to just get God realized and see to get the darshan of the God and to get His bliss or happiness. As we are part of God, we are attracted to our source. So what our eternal, we are eternal servant and we want to give pleasure to the God. So that is the, I think, truth we are seeking for, happiness and giving, serving God. Hari Guru. Thank you, Radha.
The beautiful bhajan Maharaj ji has, Nit Seva Mangu, Shama Sham Teri, Na Bhukti Mangu, Na Mukti Mangu, Na Bhukti Nahi Bhukti Mangu. So Nitya Seva Mangu, it's like I want to serve you. That's all a devotee seeks, nothing else. Because in serving, you automatically get what you need, right? It's like a hand-stomach relationship. When hand serves the stomach, it automatically gets the nourishment that it needs. And if hand thinks, no, I'm going to subsist on my own, then it will continue to grow weaker and weaker and weaker. So that is the topmost thing. That is the truth. We are God's part, and part has to seek the whole and to serve the whole. When you reach that position, everything else will follow. Bhukti, mukti, moksha, anything and everything that you need to is automatically, that purpose is already served. That is the ultimate truth.
Yes. Padma ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. When we use and we don't have any other language but to use the language that we have, path of devotion, path of knowledge, path of meditation. So when we literally say the path, it's not that we have to completely shut down what we are doing and somehow you're switching lanes and then going in a different lane of bhakti and then you're stopping everything wherever you are. The way that I see is the path of the knowledge can be a parallel path where everything that you are doing, like for example, I'm a mother, Pallavi ji is a mother, Nitin ji is a father. So all the karma yogi duties that we have to do, it's not that we are shutting everything down and then just sit somewhere and then just trying to develop some bhakti for God. Just in the process of being whoever we are, trying to fulfill our responsibilities, align all other paths with the central and the nucleus of being bhakti. Do whatever you have to do. Somebody works in a company, somebody is a father, somebody is a mother, somebody is a friend, somebody is something. Everything that we are physically doing with this body and mind, and we have the soul which is part of the God, keep that soul as the center and the nucleus where devotion is the center, which kind of facilitating all other paths within ourselves that we have to anyhow do. So that's how I see it. Like we don't have to switch lanes or lane, just stay in the lane that you are. Just rewire your thought process of doing all the yogas, right? The Gnana Yoga and then the Karma Yoga. Acquire knowledge. The purpose of acquiring knowledge has to be bhakti. The intention of doing your karma yoga is to develop bhakti for God. Do whatever you have to do as a mother, do whatever you have to do as a father. Ultimately, I'm doing this through the job that I'm given is to serve him and to develop bhakti for God. So if we insert that sentiment in all other paths that we anyhow have to do and keep the bhakti as the focal point and the nucleus, that kind of breaks down for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't have to stop anything. You continue to do it. People give an excuse. I have my studies, I have my kids, I have this responsibility. That God is not asking us to stop everything and do Radhe Govind Govind Radhe, right? And that is the whole beauty of that Shloka 2.47, where he brings in that concept of Karam Yoga. He said, continue doing. World does not demand your, he wants the world demands the work to be done, not the occupation of your mind. So he said, give the mind to me, do it for my pleasure, as a duty to me, as a, as without a sense of entitlement towards whatever you're doing, and continue to operate as best as you do with all the relations around you. Take care of your mother, father, kid, job, everything. Continue to do that, but offer the fruits to me and don't stress over things. Do it for my pleasure. Have that big picture in mind. That is essentially what Karam Yoga is. So this is one of the things that is not understood basically by most people. They think, okay, what do you want me to do? Give up my responsibilities? No, nobody's asking you. Continue doing that. Just make your consciousness from worldly consciousness to God consciousness. Okay, it's a duty that God has given me to take care of this relation. Not that, okay, it belongs to me and if this doesn't happen, I'll feel bad. It's a duty God has given me to perform to the best of my ability, even at my job, or with my parents, or with the kid, or with the relationships, or even in my seva, as opposed to, okay, I'm doing it, or if it doesn't happen this way, I'll be upset, right? Or something bad is happening to me. So he said, just start purifying your consciousness around that. And when you are completely purified your consciousness, then it becomes a complete yajna. The same act could be a bhog because you're doing it for your own sake, to appeal to your senses, and same act could become yajna when you're doing it in consciousness of as a Karam Yoga. So you could be performing yajna 24/7 while taking care of all the relationships and things that demand your attention. That is essentially what Krishna is telling us, right? Bhagavad Gita is practical. You could be studying, you could be working, everything is working. It's just the consciousness, there's a change. That's all. See, the only reason why we stress over things is because whenever there's selfishness in it, it's a very strong thing if you think deeply about it. Something that makes us uneasy or makes us feel uncomfortable while doing something is when we have a trace of selfishness and selfishness is an impurity. When we don't have that, when we are doing it for the sake of God, that whole burden will go away. But that is a very advanced stage. But if we can say we perform acts to the best of our ability without worrying or without stressing out or without having any anxiety, that means we have a pure consciousness. Even if we have a trace of anxiety, that means we don't have a pure consciousness. Very simple self-test, right? Like COVID test these days, you see that line. It's a very simple line in your head. You will see it's stressing me out. That means there is an impurity. If it's not stressing you out, you are in joy. That means that was done with a very pure consciousness. So very simple test around that. Great point, Padmaji. Shri Ramya. Yes, Shri Ramya.
Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. I had one question as well. In that previous slide, you had showed the bullseye and you asked the absolute truth and what is the bullseye. So I felt it in Bhakti there is no bullseye because you said Bhakti ki kabhi purnima nahi hoti. So the more deeper we go and we still don't find the destination. So is there really a destination in Bhakti? Bullseye?
True. Bullseye doesn't mean it's an end to it. Bullseye means just understanding what is the ultimate goal of whatever practice you are doing, right? That doesn't mean you have reached the pinnacle of what you could have achieved, but just understanding so basic fundamental question is, all right, you are doing your meditation, right? You are trying to activate your kundalini, or you are trying to sit and do your dhyan. What is the objective? What is the end game that you are striving for? That is that bullseye. And if it is anything other than having a desire to serve God, then it is still not the truth in its entirety, because you are still, beating about the bush, maybe the light aspect of it and that, because you have still not understood that ultimate aim for any soul is to realize its constitutional position, which is that of being an eternal servant of God. But yes, once you reach that stage, there's no Purnima. At least from a goal standpoint, you can say, right, this is the goal, and after that there are multiple possibilities for sure. Okay, now we come to the Kirtan segment part of it. I think we have overshot by 20 minutes. I think again a little longer. So last 5 minutes, we can have a few recitation lines, end it up with a few chantings. And Shri Ramya, you take the lead position today because you had promised it yesterday. So over to you.
Okay, sure. Pardon my voice. I just woke up. I woke up late today.
See, if you can bear with my voice, nobody has to ask for pardon. Okay, so please go ahead.
Yeah. This was Sri Krishna. Madhava Mama Deva Krishna Yadava Krishna Yadukula Krishna Madhava Mama Deva Krishna Yadava Krishna Yadukula Krishna Sadhu Janatana Sadhu Janatana Sarvabhauma Sadhu Janatana Sarvabhauma Madhava Mama Deva Madhava Mama Deva Krishna Sri Krishna Ambujalochana Ambujalochana Kumbhushubhagriva Ambujalochana Kumbhushubhagriva Bimbatara Chandra Bimbanana Bimbatara Chandra Bimbanana Krishna Sri Krishna Madhava Mama Deva Krishna Yadava Krishna Yadukula Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri Ramya ji. I'm glad you picked up something and you took the courage to actually come and recite it. It's very nice, very beautiful Krishna bhajan. So thank you so much for that. Do we have anybody else who want to recite maybe a few lines today?
Ashutosh ji also wanted to sing, and Sam ji has had question that our movie bhajans, can we sing movie bhajans too?
Sure. I mean, we prefer Maharajji's, but if we have, yeah, we can keep it short. That way, we are not, giving everybody opportunity and wrap it up on time. So sure, if you want to, sure, go ahead with a few lines.
Swati ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead. Ramya ji. Yeah.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. I have 2 lines to sing.
Sure.
So
we lost you.
Yeah.
Your voice is breaking, Swati ji. We can't hear you. You may have to fix your audio.
Yes, we will come back again. Ashutosh ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Ashutosh ji.
Yes, I'll try to sing.
Yeah.
Is someone else also? Should I go ahead? Or?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, please.
Okay. श्याम चरण सरनाई गहोरे मन श्याम चरण सरनाई गहोरे मन अंत समय को कामनाई है अंत समय को कामनाई है मातु पिता सुत भाई गहोरे मन मातु पिता सुत भाई गहोरे मन श्याम चरण सरनाई गहोरे मन काम क्रोध अरुलोभ मोह मद काम क्रोध अरुलोभ मोह नाद इन सो कछु न बसाई गहोरे मन श्याम चरण सरनाई गहोरे मन. Thank you.
Wonderful, Ajit. Very nice.
Beautiful.
Very nice one to develop this passion towards the world. Basically, it says that Sham Charan, just put your attention to the lotus feet of God, because Mata Pita Sut Bhai, Mata Pita, brother, all that, nobody will be there at your time of examination, which is like they said that life is a preparation and death is an examination. So at that time, nobody will be there. It's only your attachment to the lotus feet of God that will give you dividends at that point, nothing else. All the relations will stay here and they will not accompany you or do anything for you at that point. Beautiful bhajan. Okay, let's limit it to a couple of lines so that we don't take too much time. Pallavi, it gets very late for her, so let's try to wrap it up in the next 5 minutes. Real quick, maybe a couple of lines each.
Yes, Swati ji, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. I would like to sing Swamiji's bhajan. पूछते हो कैसे चले आएंगे मुरारी, कौन सी सुनाए धुंध लगे उन्हें प्यारी, बोले राधे चले आएंगे मुरारी, बोले राधे. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Right, Maharaji was saying that when you say Radhe, Shyam, Krishna actually comes running. But then he has to stop because you are not yet pure. So he stops at a distance, but he comes every time you say Radhe. And more Radhe you'll say, keep on purifying yourself and he'll get closer, and finally he will reveal himself in front of you. But every time you say Radhe, you make Krishna run. Okay, so next time you say Radhe Radhe, just imagine you are making Krishna run.
Wow.
He's approaching you. That is the power of this name for sure. Great. Few more hands real quick.
Yes, Sandhya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Sandhya, go ahead. You're making you today.
I'll just sing 2 lines. This bhajan I have been listening a lot recently. ओरे जादूगर श्याम तू बड़ो ही जादूगर, 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 तेरा रोम रोम जादू की पिटारी नटवर, ओरे जादूगर श्याम तू बड़ो ही जादूगर.
Beautiful, Sandhya. Very nice.
Beautiful.
I think one of the lines that comes here is "Tune loote bado bado ke ghar" as well, right? There's no bigger magician than Krishna himself for sure. Wonderful. Very nice, Sandhya. Keep it up. All right, let's take.
Yes, Padma ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Yesterday, Nitin ji asked Bhaja Govindam. I'll do 4 lines today. Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi nahi rakshati dukhin karane, nahi nahi rakshati dukhin karane, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Padmaji. Beautiful. So Shankaracharya ji, who actually propagated Advaitism, he wrote this beautiful one, Bhaj Govindam, because He was a big Rasik saint himself. He was an avatar of Shankar Bhagwan. And in Padma Puran, it is said, Lord Krishna told him, go, spread my word, re-establish Vedas, but keep them vimukh to me. Right? People are not ready. Buddhism had just... So he did that, but in private, he did this bhakti and he taught this to Krishna bhakti to his mother as well. And Bhaja Govindam is like one of his most beautiful compositions. And there is a beautiful Roop Dhyan also. If you go check it out, Swamiji picks up that Vrindavan Brandare. He's sitting with his friends near Yamuna and how they are having exchanges with food and all that. So beautiful Roop Dhyan as well. That is also written by Shankaracharya. Beautiful, Padmaji. Thank you very much. All right.
Lakshmi ji, Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe, Nitin and Pallavi. To make this into bhajans, I want to start with these 2 lines. Whether my voice is good or not, I'm not sure. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radhe Radhe, thank you.
It is said that Yuga Dharma is Sankirtan, and this is like one of the beautiful Mahamantras we can recite, whenever we have time. We can fill out spaces of our day with this Mahamantra. It's very, very powerful with remembering God himself. So next time you start chanting God's name, think of it like in material world, if there are a lot of motis and gemstones lying around you, right? You keep on collecting and filling in your pockets. So just think, the more you recite that, you are actually filling your coffers. It is just like accumulating wealth. So the more we do that, the better it is. Thank you so much. Lakshmi ji, last but not the least, Surendra ji, please go ahead.
Yes, Surendra ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Prabhu. I can't sing, but I can only read.
Sure, sure.
भक्ति की राह में पाने से खोने का मजा कुछ और है. प्रभु के लिए बंद आंखों में रोने का मजा कुछ और है. आंसू बने लफ्ज और लफ्ज बने भजन. उन भजनों में प्रभु तेरे होने का मजा कुछ और है.
Wow. Very nice, Surendra ji.
I think this will be summary of what the today's session was.
Beautiful, very nice. ज्ञान की हद है समझ और समझ की हद है प्रेम. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Surendra ji, for giving us a perfect icing on the cake today. Summarizing.
Thank you very much. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice. I think we are ready for our closing prayers. And who wants to take the English?
I'm there.
Payal ji said that you got a chance to speak, so I'm going to recite. She didn't say that, but I could read that basically. Please go ahead. Yes, go ahead, please, Payal ji.
Radhe Radhe. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for another engaging session. A lot of good questions and pretty good conversation today on Bhakti Yoga. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll talk about another topic, how much knowledge is really necessary for us to proceed on this path. Okay, we'll talk about that. Very important concept again. So I look forward to another engaging session tomorrow. So thank you again for the opportunity and for your wonderful participation.
Thank you so much, Nitin ji, for such an awesome session. Thank you, everyone, for your wonderful participation. Have a blessed day. Have a blessed evening. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Good night.
Good night.